This is The Other 51, conversations with writers of all genres about writing. I'm Brian Moritz. Today, a roundtable discussion with Drs. Lauren Smith and Shannon McCarthy. Dr. Lauren Smith and Dr. Shannon McCarthy, welcome to The Other 51. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having you. We're happy to be here.
And this is my first kind of roundtable, I guess, discussion. And I was throwing out ideas for people to have on, and you guys were both like Shrek at the beginning, like Donkey at the beginning of Shrek, like pick me, pick me, pick me. I'm like, yeah, game on. We'll do this. It's great. It's like an IACS reunion without bacon or beer or any of the fun stuff. But we're all here, so
which is garbage.
One of us missing from IACS this year, so not naming names, Shannon, but yeah.
Yeah, and it was in Indiana, so there was a whole lot to see. There was peanut butter beer, which I didn't have, sadly, but it just means I have to make a return trip to Bloomington.
Yeah, you missed. It was pretty amazing. It is pretty amazing. So
I will say there was actually a legitimate reason, and I think if I had tried to go, my head would have exploded. That was the weekend between our last week of classes and finals. And I was so far behind from knee surgery and getting married that I think I probably would have just had a complete breakdown if I tried to go. But I'm going to do my best to make it next year. That's cool. On the docket.
If your head had exploded, we would have put it back together with bacon.
Exactly.
I mean,
and glued it together with the peanut butter beer.
There you go.
Ooh, I like where our heads are at. I like it.
I like it. So before we get to all kind of like our major topics for today, there is an elephant in the room that we need to address, and we need to get this out of the way early on. And Lauren, you have been, and it's been widespread among IACS people on Twitter and anybody who sees it, your absolute virulent anti-HGTV campaign that you've been waging on the social media for years. And I guess just explain yourself, really. I mean, how dare you?
How dare I? Because it's crap. End of story. I mean, what show do you want to start with? We could start with House Hunters, which we all know is totally staged. And, the drama. Which one are they going to pick? Is it not going to be the empty house for once? And then all of their ridiculous requests. I need $1 million house, but my budget is, $200,000. And they need their granite and their entertaining space and all of this other stuff. And it's just, Or you could go over to that other show with, what's his, I don't even know their names, Tarek and Christina. It's the same thing all the time. Are they going to
the house flippers?
Yeah. Are they going to be able to flip it? Is it going to come under budget? Oh, let me bite my nails. And of course, Christina's going to do everything she wants, even when Tarek's say, no, you can't do that. So really, it's just a whole bunch of crap is what it is.
What's amazing about this is for all your anti-HGTV stuff, you know a lot about these programs. So,
my mother is an HGTV devotee, so I do watch HGTV. I just, I think the only one I really like is House Hunters International because it lets me dream about maybe it is possible to own a second home in another location. Haha.
But so it's always funny because me and our mutual friend and Lauren, your colleague, Galen Clavio, will sometimes start back and forthing about some ridiculous HGTV stuff. And then you'll chime in with you guys are all idiots. What are you doing? And it's fabulous. So Shannon, where do you fall on on our HGTV? Are you on the side of the angels with me or are you on Lauren's side?
Well, truthfully, I have not had cable in 5 years. And so the only time I see HGTV is at my dentist's office. And so I will say I can't stand House Hunters, and I usually try to have them switch the channel. Although I will say every once in a while there'll be something interesting, related to kitchens and things like that. At least gives me ideas. It's like in grad school when I had $4 to my name, I could at least dream about, one day I'm going to have a nice kitchen. One day, maybe, assuming I finish my dissertation ever. So I'm kind of just very meh on it. I think I used to like it before they had all the fake BS reality shows.
I'm gonna make one other point. when this all started, it was when we were doing that roundtable research talk every week.
Right.
And you and Galen and Jimmy Sanderson would all be talking about HGTV, and I, being the only woman, would be like, "What are you guys doing? Why aren't we talking about sports?" So that's sort of where this all stemmed from. Second, if you actually want a show to hate watch, I think it's on the DIY network. It's the Deck Building House.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
It's all of these people with these amazing homes that build, I kid you not, like not three, like $750,000 decks onto their homes. And when you come out and they're like,
those are the people with, like, that's just more money than sense. Like, why would you do that?
They're like, I can't function on my current deck because look, if I reach one arm out, I can touch the side of my house. And then if I reach my other arm out, I'm at the end of my deck, and this just won't do. And then they built these massive 2-3-story decks that always have like the built-in gourmet kitchen, and they all have to have a fire element. And you're talking, I think one had an elevator. I think that's when I had to walk away finally. We were hate watching. I was like, I can't do this anymore. But it's a great home show that will really get you hate watching. It's a good one.
Excellent. As someone who has a deck, I don't know why you'd want more deck. Any deck is just a pain in the butt to do. But anyway, we've gone.
I've been thinking about all the staining and all that. Ugh, no, thank you.
I mean, I assume if you have like an 8-story deck with an elevator, you can pay someone to stain it. But anyway,
fair point.
We move on to more, I guess, more relevant. I don't know, matters. But I wanted to talk to you guys about like research and academic writing, and we're all kind of at different stages in our academic career. And so I guess Lauren, we can start with you. Kind of talk a little bit about how you got to your current gig at Indiana, and a little bit about the research that you're doing now.
I don't even know where to start that conversation. So, my professional background is broadcast writing, and I wrote probably about 6 years for both television and concert promotion on the promotion side. So, broadcast writing and promoting different programs, promoting different events, promoting different people, promoting our sports personalities and all that other good stuff is sort of my background. And I got my master's during that time. And then I remember at my last job that I had, I said something to my boss about, I would really love to go back and get a PhD and do research. And she looked at me and said, why would you waste your time? And that's pretty much when I knew when I was done in the television world. So I went back to school. I got my PhD. I started out as a political communication person because I thought, oh, this will be interesting and it'll make me sound smart. And then when I was going up to AEJ that first year, my soon-to-be dissertation chair came up to me and said, I know who you are and I know your background, and I'm doing this paper on beach volleyball. Would you be interested? And I said, wait, you can write on sports? We're done with politics. So I got my PhD at Alabama. I got a job at Auburn. I was there for 6 years. And then the opportunity came up to come up to Indiana, which, just had a much bigger program, a better program, a dedicated sports-focused program. And so, that was kind of a no-brainer move.
So, and what kind of research are you doing now? What's your current agenda?
Anything that sounds interesting. So I focus a lot on gender. I focus a lot on portrayals. That's sort of where everything sort of centers around. And so I have a bunch of projects kind of in the works dealing with that. I'm looking a little bit at the protest, the national anthem protest, and athlete activism as well. But with the lab we have here, it's allowed me to really move into the realm of media effects versus content. So, I'm doing some studies that look at visual attention in photographs and visual attention in Instagram, which has been really amazing to do and really a lot of fun.
Shannon, kind of the same overarching question. Kind of what's your background and how did you get to where you are now?
So I kind of have always been on the sports side. I was an athlete. I swam in college. And I unfortunately graduated the 08-09, which was really not the best time to come out with very, very little experience. And so I knew I loved being with college students. I loved being able to, kind of mentor a lot of my younger teammates. And so I thought I was going to really go into more academics and athletics. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go get a master's, get it in higher education, and then be able to really transition into that. And when I was about done with that, I got an offer to stay and do my PhD. It was one of those offers that, with the funding and with things I had started to become more interested in, I really couldn't say no. And so, kind of looking at that, I started my PhD on the sport management side, and about halfway through, my advisor was offered a position at another university. And it was a university that I wasn't going to be able to do a PhD in and so I had to start looking at switching programs. And I ended up staying, and I did my master's and my PhD at the University of Arkansas. I ended up actually switching over to marketing, but I have my emphasis is in sports and social media. And those are actually the two things that I study. And so I came out of that and I graduated in 2016. And I got a job at the University of Central Missouri, go Mules. And so I've been there for 2 years now. I've been teaching a couple different classes. I really have been enjoying teaching marketing research, just because I do get with different groups. I get to work with different organizations. In the fall, we're looking to work with one of the athletic departments and do some research for them, which I'm pretty excited about. And I'm finally now getting back to teaching sports marketing. So it's really nice to kind of finally get into my groove and get into teaching a lot of the subjects that are really more informed by my research, that are things that are really what I want to focus in and what I really care about. So that's kind of how I got to where I am.
And you are, I must be said publicly, you are my stat rabbi.
I will say that was one thing at U of A with marketing. I took a lot of stats classes, like an insane amount. So I have my moments where I'm helpful.
So one reason I wanted to have you guys both on and kind of in a roundtable, because I find it very interesting that you were both college athletes. And Lauren, you're still kicking butt as an Ironman finisher and a triathlete and all around awesome physical athlete. And I'm wondering, how much, cause you, having gone into kind of studying sports from an academic perspective and even kind of working professionally in it, how much does your experience as a kind of a high level athlete, how much does that influence and color how your work? How does it influence kind of like your worldview or how you research or just kind of like your view of sports?
For me, at least, in a couple different ways. I think really right now I'm able to look at the media of the sports that I'm interested in and see where there's still shortcomings. But then I'm like, these are questions that need to be answered. And then when I listen to my friends talk about, different Instagram accounts or different, sport-focused accounts, hearing what they like and what they don't, because sometimes what they're saying they like is contrary to what the research is saying. These portrayals of women are bad and not good, and women should be portrayed in a different manner. But when I actually talk to, my friends that are into marathons and triathlons, that doesn't necessarily always hold true, which is really kind of where I've started to go with the more effects research, because if these women who are athletes are not bothered by things that we've laid out in the literature to say, this is what you should be bothered by, then is there a disconnect, or is there, a meeting point that we can come to where most people will be happy? And from my own standpoint too, it makes me a little bit more purposeful in what I post on social media, because, I want to break these norms that we've seen with female athletes in media and post them in ways that I want to see women athletes portrayed, really active, engaged, and working at their sport. And so a lot of that sort of drives that research, especially with gender.
So what are some of those things? I'm curious, just to follow up real quick. What are some of those things that like you see in the literature that should have an impact, should bother people, and that, and kind of in talking to your friends and talking to other people, they're not bothered by?
So probably the big one. So the literature lays out, they say that women are very underrepresented in sports media. So when you look across all mediums, women in sports media are not receiving the amount of coverage that men are. And that's sort of agreed upon with what I'm hearing. Everybody says, I wish I wish the Ironman account would post more women. I wish so-and-so would post more women. But then we talk about things like women are always portrayed as women first, athletes second. They're highlighting their femininity. They're highlighting their sexuality. They're highlighting their role as a mother. Yet when the the Serena Williams Vanity Fair cover came out, where she was pregnant on the cover, all of my athlete friends were like, I love this. This is amazing. There's a track athlete that ran pregnant, and all of my, female friends were like, this is amazing. This is wonderful. And sort of that disconnect, I think, from the literature is where they say, portraying an athlete as a mother is bad. She's more than a mother. She's more than this. At least for my age group and my age bracket, a lot of those women are mothers. So they're seeing that, I think, almost as more inspirational than negative, which is interesting.
Shannon, what about your experience as a swimmer, and how does that, I know you're kind of been more on the marketing side with a lot of your research, but how's that influenced your kind of research experience?
Well, I think a lot of it actually probably comes more from my experience with my family. My dad's been in broadcast news for 35 years. And so I kind of grew up seeing all that news very, very normal for me. And seeing, when people make, idiotic comments at press conferences, and he would bring that home. And so, kind of mock them mercilessly at home. Which I think we all know that that's probably where it comes from for me.
I was going to say, you come by it naturally then.
I really do. And so I got used to seeing kind of both sides of that. And just kind of, I really enjoy looking at crisis communication and how, when there are issues, how are your organizations addressing them? Which I think is really important. My senior year at Cincinnati, they cut the funding for all the scholarships for our men's team, as well as I think it was the men's track and men's cross country. And so kind of having that experience, it was kind of eye-opening to see how organizations had that function and how they went about, having that crisis communication, having to come out and say, oh, this is what we're doing, and having to address a fair amount of backlash. At the time, UC Swimming had some very, very talented athletes, and so it was frowned upon pretty strongly. And so that's me towards a lot of that crisis communication. But I will say, having been an athlete in college, one of the things that I really learned was, those skills of time management and balance. Me as a writer and as a researcher, because I'm forced to, have my time blocked out. So whether, I have my time blocked out for research, I have my time blocked out for writing, I have time blocked out for, class prep. And so for me, that's kind of informed more of my job almost than necessarily on my other experiences. I mean, all the experiences add to it, but it's not really everything. I will say that this is a project we've kind of been working on, when the Brock Turner story hit and his sentencing came down, that was a really interesting kind of culmination of everything for me. Brock Turner was a swimmer. His older brother actually started at Cincinnati right after I graduated. And so it was very interesting to see how my friends on Facebook who swam with his brother reacted, as well as seeing, how that conversation on Twitter was going. And so for me, that was really interesting. It was a really nice kind of combination of the two, my two interests. I do a lot of research on Twitter and things like that. And so kind of being able to look at that, for me, it was a really nice project. Now, it was really dark to work on, and it was one of those, you're like, I need to work on this, once every other week, because otherwise I'm just going to curl up and cry and be like, the world is horrible. But then at the same time, it was really kind of refreshing and uplifting to see that, women were starting to come out and say, hey, this happened to me. Hey, this was a problem. And it wasn't just, your average person, but you started to see a lot more of your very prominent, you had athletes, you had more celebrities coming out and saying, hey, this happened to me. And so it kind of turned into more of a community of women, which reminded me a lot of being on a team.
You guys have both mentioned studying social media and portrayals and use of social media. And I tend to come at it. I think it's interesting because I think we all kind of come at it from slightly different perspectives. I tend to come at it from a more journalistic routine use, and I'm wondering, this is kind of coming out of my own research and trying to jumpstart some projects, but from both of your perspectives, I mean, what's interesting about sports and media and social media right now? Because it's been around so long. I remember a couple years ago at IACS, I think it was in New York, when we had that big roundtable discussion of like studying Twitter versus not studying Twitter, which seems so weirdly antiquated looking back on it like 4 or 5 years ago. But now, like, now that that's kind of in the past and like they're established, what's interesting right now about the sports media and social media world?
Good question.
One of the things that I find really interesting is how leagues and schools are, I don't want to say putting a muzzle on athletes, but I kind of feel like, social media, athletes are expected to be much more limited. I think it's Nick Saban that doesn't let his players, be on Twitter. And I think there was somebody else as well. Or they're very restricted on their social media when they're in season. And so I think it's kind of interesting how there's been this really strong push for, being really image conscious on social media, and really trying to play that up and fit within the overall voice of the organization. So to me, I think that's really pretty interesting. They're really just using it as another way to directly communicate with fans and use that same voice that they're going to use in commercials and they're going to use on any of their printed materials. And so to me, I look at that and I think that's really interesting to see the image. And I don't want to say there's kind of a lessening of freedom, but it kind of seems like there's a little bit more of a corralling, especially with your younger athletes, as to what they're able to say.
Yeah, and I think probably the most interesting thing that I've watched over the past couple of years is how it's changing and how people are still trying to figure it out. Because I think you can point to several different entities and say, how do they not know to do this by now? How do they not know how to use this? And do they fully understand what they're using it for and how the best way is to reach and engage with their fans? The amount of accounts that don't engage on social media is kind of baffling to me. But I also agree, how athletes are treated with respect in college to social media, the different rules and restrictions that are placed on athletes and social media. I remember having a conversation with a couple of athletes when I was still at Auburn, and one of them was a swimmer, and she said, we are not allowed to post pictures of ourselves on social media in bathing suits. The guys are, but we are not, which I thought was really interesting. I'm like, but you're a swimmer.
Right.
Uniform is a bathing suit. And how does this work out? And she said, well, if it's competition, it's okay. But, when we're at our training trip, we can't, or if we're down at the beach with friends, we can't post pictures of ourselves on the beach in bathing suits, but the guys can.
Like, that's like all the issues that we see with like high school dress codes, where it's very different what women experience versus men. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But, even I presented a study at IACS this year that looked at NBC's Instagram feeds. They started it in London, and how it's changed. And it went really from pictures to this year, it almost became a supplemental television element. They were doing highlights. They were doing interviews. They were doing all sorts of video. So to see kind of the evolution of how they've used their account over the past 4 years was interesting. And so that's sort of where I'm looking, or what I think is interesting, to watch how people are changing and trying to keep up and keep an interest and keep a following.
I'm curious too. Have you guys, being both women who are participating and studying sports, which is obviously traditionally a male dominated environment, kind of from a professional standpoint, have there been any problems, any issues? And I remember, Lauren, you saying something like you were surprised that people could study sports. Have you had faced any kind of blowback or kind of resistance to, oh my gosh, the girl wants to write about sports or anything like that?
On social media, yes. And I've also gotten backlash of the fact that I am a woman who talks about sport on social media. From our academic community, no, though, of course not. But yeah, on the social media realm, absolutely. Both as I talk about my research and when I talk about myself as an athlete. There's blowback, there's the comments, there's the things that I won't repeat on your very lovely podcast. But of course I've experienced that, and I expect I'll keep experiencing that. So yeah.
I say that I've been very lucky to not really, at least not that I can recall in the last couple of years. I haven't really experienced any of that real vitriol from anyone, at least not on social media. So I'm pretty grateful for that. I will say, here and there, I will say there was this one event that just stands out in my mind. I was out at a bar with some friends, and we were talking about, I don't know, it was some football game. We were talking about, defenses and things like that, what the team was going to need, and I was making some comments, and one gentleman that was sitting next to us, anytime I said something, he would completely ignore it, but someone next to me could say the exact same thing, and he would totally respond. And so we kind of just looked at each other, and he started repeating me verbatim to see if the guy would respond. And it was kind of hilarious. And then I will say, when he tried to tell me that Tony Romo was a better quarterback than Peyton Manning, I just looked at him and said, "Stop talking. You need to go take a lap and think about what you just said." So, I don't think he really appreciated that, but, if you're going to make that comment, you need to go take a lap and think about what you just said and reevaluate some of your life choices.
I'll piggyback on that too. I've also gotten comments in real life. I've gotten comments when I've been out running. I've gotten comments when I've been out on my bike, and I've even gotten comments when I've been at a triathlon. I was at one a couple of years ago where we were lined up to start the swim, and the man that was next to me was blatantly making, very sexualized and gross comments, to the point that I ended up moving away from him. But I thought, why am I moving? So it's not just social media, at least as a woman, that we're still experiencing this, I don't think.
Yeah, I will say, I was just going to say, I definitely, now that you do mention that, it's like if I'm out running, I'm very particular about where I run.
Yep.
Just because I'm like, it's a safety issue. There's some great trails I would love to run on, but I don't feel safe. And I'm like, I'm not going to put myself in, that position. There was one time I was out running, and it was a place I would very regularly run. And there was a guy in one of those, big over the top trucks that basically was following me as I'm running. And it was just so uncomfortable. I mean, my splits were outstanding on that run, but it was not a good experience for me. And so I didn't take that route for quite a while after that, even though it was a route that I absolutely loved.
In my sport media and society class this past semester, we were talking about Title IX and access to sport and barriers to participation. And somebody said, well, there are no barriers anymore. And I said, okay, how many of you go out and run? And a lot of them raised their hands. And I said, when you go out and run, do you let somebody know where you go? Do you make conscious choices about the clothes you put on so nobody yells at you? Do you send some sort of e-crumb? Do you run with somebody else because you prefer not to run alone? And every woman was like, absolutely. And all the guys were like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Why would I do that? And I said, barriers to participation still exist. I said, if you can't run out your front door, not picking an outfit, not letting somebody know where you go, not doing something to keep yourself safe, that's a barrier. And that's a barrier to participation. They were all going, oh. So,
And it's got to be weird. It's got to be frustrating to hear that, but also I would assume there's a little bit of All right, now if you see the light bulb go off, is there a little bit of kind of good feeling, like, all right, maybe now they're going to get it in a good way?
I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's definitely becoming, people are becoming more conscientious and more aware of it. I think my students, at least, and my friends are starting to be much more aware of these things. And I mean, I've had friends that will call each other out for saying things, and it's I think people are becoming much more cognizant, which makes me happy.
And it's just kind of noteworthy that we're recording this on June 15th, which is the day that the Chris Hardwick news broke on Twitter. The accusations kind of came up against him, and how much this is an ongoing kind of story, not just in society, but in media and on social media, and how this is not kind of a one-time deal that happened last year. It's definitely an ongoing conversation that we need to have, kind of in all facets of media and all facets of society too.
It is absolutely pervasive. I mean, I think about Cam Newton laughing during the press conference when a female reporter asked him a very reasonable question about gameplay. And he was just like laughing because a girl was asking him a question about that.
Mm-hmm. So I ask all my guests this, what is the best thing you've read lately?
I will say I was pretty entertained by the Ringer Brian Colangelo story. That was probably the most fun thing from my perspective. I know that sounds weird, that I've read in a while.
No, that was fabulous. And when Galen was on the podcast a few weeks ago, I mentioned that. And what I loved about that story was, aside from how insane it was structured in a way where it just got like crazier and crazier the more you got into it. Like, it wasn't, I said this on the podcast with Galen, it wasn't like the inverted pyramid where they led with the news. Like, it got you deep into the story, and it just got every paragraph was something weirder and deeper. And it was a fascinating read.
Yeah, you just didn't want to stop reading. You're like, oh, it was just like, this is like a good book you can't put down.
Right.
Do I have to give a deep and serious answer? Because I've been reading a lot about the sexual abuse allegations across women's sport, and that's not really like good. So can I give a more lighthearted? I really enjoyed reading this.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
The story I sent you guys earlier about the man who made tacos. No. The man made tacos from his own amputated foot and then invited his friends over to come and enjoy them. How do you not say that's a great story?
I saw that story on social media a few weeks ago. We're gonna let Shannon throw up a little bit. But I have many questions. Like, did it say how, did he slow cook it? I mean, cause it's a foot. I mean, it's gonna be bony, so you gotta figure it's gotta be more of a fast, like a saute, right?
I think they said it was, a piece of, something from right on top of his shin. And they showed some of the pictures how it was prepared. I can't remember what it was because I was just kind of horrified.
Well, ideally, that's going to be a muscular piece, so you're going to want to like flash fry that or something. But do you serve it with pico or?
It was marinated overnight, and then it was sautéed with peppers, onions, and limes alongside corn tortillas and a tomatillo sauce.
Well, at least he used the corn tortillas. He wasn't a flour man, he wasn't a monster. So, in that way, at least. So,
right. And apparently,
in that whole thing,
all but one of his friends was able to keep it down.
Yeah, I think he invited 11, and one said, "I don't even want to partake," but the other 10 were like, "Dude, let's eat your foot."
So wait, he told them before?
Oh yeah, they all knew.
Okay, so it wasn't a surprise. How do you think of my tacos? Hey, guess what? Situation.
Yeah, I'm thinking that would be a really good way to lose all of your friends immediately. Like that, it was my foot. We're done. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you kind of would need informed consent on that one. Yeah. But Shannon, what if somebody made bacon out of their shin muscle?
You can't make bacon out of a shin muscle.
I mean, challenge accepted now.
There is a barbecue place in the next town up from us that we learned does turkey ribs, which I didn't know you could do turkey ribs. So I'm going to say if you can do turkey ribs, you can make shin bacon.
Shin bacon, absolutely. I think this is the next frontier. definitely, clearly.
That's going to be a hard pass for me. Hard pass. I will take my bacon nice and crispy. I will take bacon, pretty much any flavor. I will take, except for foot, I will take chocolate covered bacon.
But shin bacon could be crispy. It's all preparing.
Right.
But it's from the shin, and that's just no.
So did you have bacon at your wedding is the question.
We did not. I know.
Blasphemy.
I thought about it, but then I was a little concerned that I would, while they were preparing it before the ceremony, I would end up in the kitchen eating it and then get bacon on my dress.
Legit concern.
Sure,
Yeah,
I'll allow it, yeah.
I will say that one of my bridesmaids before the ceremony, because I was complaining about being hungry, this is also after I'd had Cinnamon Crunch bagels at breakfast and I'd had pizza at lunch. She went and got me a cupcake because I was hungry. And so there's definitely pictures of me eating cupcakes before I get married. I'm fully in my dress and everything. Yep, just chowing down on a cupcake.
As you do.
I got no crumbs on me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Lauren, Shannon, if people want to follow you and see the work you're up to, where's the best place to do so?
I've been a little bit more active on Instagram lately, but Instagram and Twitter are both places. My handle on Twitter is at LAURN Smith, and my Instagram handle is LMR Smith.
For me, it's probably Twitter, and I actually have two different accounts that I use. One of them is because I have this ongoing Twitter assignment that I use with my capstone students, and for 10 weeks of the semester, we post up a different question related to marketing and professionalism and kind of all kinds of things related to what's going on in the world of business. And so it's with between 5 and 6 different universities, and so because of that, I have an account dedicated to that, and that's PROFSMKTG. And then my other account is, I do talk about sports and things like that, but it's my personal account, and it's Sassy Smack, SASSYSMC.
Excellent.
And so either the totally, and my say is pretty much just like pictures of food and my cats and random places I go. And so, yeah, so it's not really the most fun to follow unless you really like pictures of my cats, who are both just adorable.
Your cats are pretty awesome. I'll give you that.
Yes.
I mean, Winston Churchill he's pretty legit.
All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. We'll have to reconvene this roundtable at some other point in the future, but thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
As always, thanks for listening to The Other 51. You can find show notes for this episode and all our episodes at sportsmediaguy.com on the Other 51 tab. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. I can highly recommend Overcast for this. Our theme music is by Ellie Moritz.